Heather was stopped in her car at a stoplight, when suddenly the passenger door in the front seat opened up and another young woman slid into the seat. Opening up her purse, the young woman pulled out a gun and demanded that Heather immediately drive to an ATM machine. Well, Heather bolted from the car and the woman pulled the trigger. The bullet hit Heather in the upper back as she was running away. And realizing that she had been hit by this bullet, Heather started screaming that she'd just been shot. And she ran by a number of people, and people just kind of watched as this woman ran by. But there was one woman who did not watch. She sprang to action. Her name was Ashley. And she grabbed Heather to keep her from running any farther, and she told Heather to get on the ground. And so Heather laid down on the sidewalk, and Ashley then took off her blouse and put it down on the wound and held pressure to her wound with her one hand as she picked up her cell phone and called 911 in the other hand. Well, the paramedics came. And the paramedics told Ashley that if she hadn't done what she did, put pressure on that wound with her blouse, Heather probably would have bled out and would have died. Ashley saved Heather's life that day. It was a good deed. And that good deed made a difference for Heather. In a sense, that good deed brought a sense of redemption to the experience that Heather had. It's a terrible thing when anyone gets shot. And it was a terrible thing for Heather to get shot. But what Heather will remember more than being shot, please hear this. What she'll remember more than being shot was being saved by Ashley. You see, her good deed that day redeemed Heather's life. And that's what I want you to see this morning. Our good deeds, whether they're big or whether they're small, bring a redemptive process to life. Our good deeds, big or small, change life from the way it is to the way it should be. Our good deeds, big or small, redeem injustice. Our good deeds show love and compassion. Our good deeds represent the best that there is in humanity. So there's great power in good deeds, whether they're big or whether they're small. But even though there's a lot of power in good deeds, most people just don't do them. And the reason why most people don't do good deeds is because they're just so busy. They're just so busy, they don't want to take the time to do that good deed. They get the thought, but they don't act on it. But another reason why people don't do good deeds is because many are just complacent. They'd rather watch than get involved. They'd rather stand and do nothing than do something. It's kind of, the mindset is kind of like what some people have with regards to sports. You know, there are the players on the field, and then there are those in the stands, the watchers. And the players on the field, well, they're the ones that are involved in the action. They're the ones that determine the course of the game. They're the ones that do good deeds and do things. And the fans, well, they watch from a distance with no real personal involvement. But you know something? If you study the Bible, which I know many of you have. The Bible over and over and over seems to suggest that we're not to be a fan in the stands watching the events of life take place. We are, as Christians, to be on the field determining those events that take place in life. Did you hear that? We're not to be the fan in the stands. We're to be the players on the field. The theologian Soren Kierkegaard said that quote, and I'd like us to read that right now together. Kierkegaard once said, read with me,
"We come to church thinking that we are the audience, the preacher is the actor, and God is the prompter.
But when you read the Bible, you realize that the people are the actors,
The preacher is the prompter, and God is the audience."
Or it's like going to a von Schlegel play, where you're sitting in the audience, looking at the stage, waiting for the curtain to rise, and suddenly the curtain rises, and you see another audience looking at a stage, waiting for a curtain to rise. And then that curtain rises, and there is yet another audience looking at another stage, waiting for another curtain to rise. And pretty soon, you and the audience begin to feel a little uneasy. You start looking around, wondering if maybe you are on stage. Well, you are, according to the Bible. Every one of us is on stage. And God is that audience. God is watching, waiting to see if we are going to make a difference in this game of life through our good deeds. And that's what Abimelech did in the scripture that I read for you. Abimelech is not a Hebrew, as I told you earlier. But yet when he hears that this prophet has been thrown into a cistern and left to starve to death and die, he has compassion for the guy. So he goes to the king and he says, "King, this just isn't right. This is a prophet, a man of God. We should do something here. I'll save him if you give me the word." And the king says, "All right, go get him out of the cistern." Abimelech becomes an advocate for Jeremiah the prophet. Which is ironic because, again, Abimelech is not a Hebrew. So Abimelech goes to the cistern, he gets some men to help, and he takes those rags, and you remember the story, he throws them down and says, "Put the rags on the armpits to kind of cushion the rope and not to keep the rope from burning your skin." And then he lifts Jeremiah out of the cistern. He saves Jeremiah's life. It was a good deed. Just as Ashley did a good deed for Heather in saving her life. Now, you and I might not ever have an opportunity to do a good deed by saving someone's life, but we can give life through the good deed of donating our blood. We can ease someone's loneliness through the good deed of calling on them in their home, visiting with them. We can ease someone's pain who's going through chemotherapy by sending them a card or taking them a hot dish. As I told Lily, giving someone a hug or saying to someone that you care. These are simple good deeds that can be done. And when we do these good deeds, again, we bring a redemptive spirit to life. We change the moment for that other individual who's receiving our good deed. One day, a husband and wife were traveling down south when a toothache developed. And realizing that they were going to have to stop their travels and take care of this toothache, they started calling around to some of the local dentists in the town that they were in to see if there would be a local dentist who would take someone from outside the community on short notice. And they found one dentist, and so they were told to come to the dentist's office, and they'd have to wait until the dentist had some time to kind of slip them in, and so that's what they did. And finally, the dental assistant came and got him and brought him into the back room, and after introductions, the woman said, you know, we've got a bad tooth here. We need the tooth pulled. We're in a real rush. We're already 2 or 3 hours late in our time schedule, so don't use any Novocaine. You have to take time. Just pull the tooth. And at that point, the dentist said, man, you are a one brave woman. Show me the tooth. The woman looked at her husband and said, show him the tooth, dear. We believe that some are called to suffer. We believe that some are called to be the stars, to exhibit courage on the field. We believe that some are called to be the shakers and the movers. And others are to watch. But again, what I want you to hear this morning is that we are to be the players. We are to be the shakers and movers. And we can change life, if ever so small, through our good deeds. Every day. Every day we have the opportunity to do a good deed. Philip Bliss was a composer. And one day he went to hear Dwight Moody, who was a well-known evangelist of his time, preach. And during Moody's sermon, Moody told a story about a shipwreck that took place on Lake Erie outside of Cleveland. There was a lot of loss of life in that shipwreck. And that shipwreck happened because the lower lights weren't being tended to. Bringing home his point, Moody said, my friends, the master above will tend to the lighthouse, but you need to keep the lower lights burning. Now, what are the lower lights? Well, the lower lights are the lights that are along the shore, that guide the ship to the mouth of the harbor. Now, later that day, as Philip Bliss was reflecting on that sermon, that phrase, the lower lights, came to him. And he started mulling it over, this phrase, the lower lights. And so he sat down, being a composer, and he took a pencil and some paper, and a song was born. And the words came, brightly beams our Father's mercy, from his lighthouse evermore. But to us he gives the keeping of the lights along the shore. Let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam across the way, some poor fainting, struggling seaman. You may rescue, you may even save. Our good deeds are like the lower lights. And so when we do good deeds, when we keep the light shining, we might not ever rescue someone, we might